Hi everybody, I'm Jasmine Navarro, certified wellbeing expert working with educational institutions and companies supporting their wellbeing. And as you know, every week I interview different experts who make a difference in people's lives. And today I'm super excited to be interviewing Sam Browning. Hi Sam, thank you so much for coming on. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, hi Jasmine. I mean, I don't think I've ever been called an expert before,
You are
but I'll take it.
different.
I've been in the Middle East for 13 years now. My background is I originally came out here to work in the outdoors, taking kids into the desert to do outward bounds and things like that, and then I transitioned into recruitment. And so for the past 12 years, I've been working solidly in recruitment and talent acquisition, both in agency as well as in-house. And then in the last year, I've been very focused on employee well-being within our organization.
Brilliant. Sounds very, very interesting. So you chose this title, How a Company's Wellbeing Offering Can Be Used as a Tool to Attract Talent in a Crowded Market. Can you tell us a bit more about that and what made you choose this title for today?
Yeah, I think well-being and the concept of it has been around for a long time. It's not new. There
Yeah.
are a lot of businesses that do it very well. There are people like yourself that work in the industry and they have done for years. And I think that post-COVID, that the focus on it has grown substantially, and the need as an employer to provide well-being options to staff has become even more relevant post-pandemic.
Yeah.
And for me, looking at everybody looks at well-being from a perspective of it's the right thing to do, and it is without question. Businesses should be moving towards that, but very often they look at why they're doing it because it looks good on websites. It looks good from
Exactly.
for investors, for people looking in, and it's good for marketing. But actually, I really think that it can be used far better as a recruiting tool. You know, companies or individuals now are. Last year in the US, Glassdoor did a survey, and they found that 75% of all job seekers looked at a company's well-being offering before considering applying for a job there. Now, if you think that that's not out there, if your organization isn't broadcasting what it's doing, if it doesn't make it a priority, in a market where candidates rule at the moment and they have their choice of employer, if you're not offering well-being and it's visual, then how are you competing?
Wow. That's so interesting. And let me just say hi to Sathik. Hi, welcome. And Deo. And welcome to everybody else who's joining. Please feel free to write any comments or questions in the chat and we will be happy to answer them. That's really interesting, Sam. So when you talk about well-being, so just so it's clear, well-being offering, what does that actually entail? And I guess it's different from company to company. Like, what is a well-being offering?
Yeah, so I think the first thing for everything is education around what it is. You know, I think whenever
Yeah.
you go, you can go to your friends, you can go to your employers, you can go to anybody on the street, and if you ask them what they define well-being as or wellness, you'll get 10 different answers. You know, the top two, obviously fitness and diet, which forms part of it. But when we're talking about holistic well-being, we're talking about offering employees support with the entire range of wellness options. So, for example, there are a number of different formats. Normally, it's 5 or 7 pillars. You know, there's mental health, there's financial, there's intellectual, which is continued learning through career. There is physical and diet, obviously, as well. Then there's social and community, which is your relationships and the world around you. And then obviously there's the usual one, which is occupational health. Now, all of those factors fall under a well-being offering. And as an employer, it is our responsibility, or is your responsibility as employers, to make sure that you're offering something across that range for your employees. It's no longer okay to just say, we're a great company because we pay the best. You know, last year, Gallup found that 3 times as many people left their jobs for better well-being benefits and work-life blend than they did for salary. And in a market like the UAE that has just changed with golden visas now, they're no longer, that shift away from being beholden to your employer. If you want to go and earn 1,000 dirhams down the road, because actually they've shifted to a 4.5-day week as opposed to a 5-day week, it's a viable option now. I know employees that work for Microsoft. Now, globally, they're fantastic when it comes to well-being and things like that, but they've moved to Google for less money because the benefits that Google are offering them are actually better than what they have at Microsoft. Now, I don't know the ins and outs. I don't know, obviously, the list of everything, but it's no longer just about the salary you're being offered every month.
Yeah, well, that completely makes sense, doesn't it? When you think about it, if you don't look after, if your well-being is not being looked after, then you can't really enjoy that much in your life. But what would you say? Because I guess different companies offer different. Obviously, they have different offers regarding well-being. Like, what would you say is sort of the standard well-being offering? Like, what is a good offering for well-being, and what does it involve? Is it a few workshops now and then? Like, what actually is it?
So it's funny. Things have changed even over the last year that I've been looking into it. There are people that say you put on workshops about stress management and you offer pizza in the office on a Friday, a work from home Wednesday, and things like that.
Okay.
All of these things are good. They are steps in the right direction.
Yeah.
But you have to look at the base level first. Somebody once described it as making a cake. So all of these additional things are nice. The gym memberships, the discounts are wonderful pieces of icing. But if you look at the core sponge, shall we say, that actually make up the cake, and that's your day-to-day work, that's the work environment that you're in, that's the relationships that you have with your reporting manager, with the people around you, with your peers, the tools that you have while you're in the office. They're the fundamentals that need to be worked with. Are you called at every hour under the sun in a world where we are completely accessible 24 hours, 7 days a week? Do you have boundaries in place? They're the base level things that businesses need to be looking at, not just the cherry on the cake, which is a free gym membership or working from home or things like that. They're all important, but it's important to look at everything together. There's a concept that was introduced or has been around for a while called well washing. It's very well known in the market. Realistically, that's putting a plaster over a wound. And so what that is that's a business going, do you know what? Our well-being offering is we offer free gym memberships and we offer, cakes on people's birthday. Now, what they don't say is that those employees are working 6 days a week. They're working from 8 until 7 every day. They're not provided a lunch. You see what I mean? So they're plastering over the cracks. They're saying they look after an employee's well-being, but really are they?
Yeah, no, that's really, really interesting. And so why do you think companies are struggling to get investment for well-being initiatives?
Fundamentally, it comes down to ROI. Businesses look at the bottom line. And that's why I wanted to talk about this topic specifically, because traditionally you have to look at it's money in versus money out. There are a number of studies now that make it no longer a question around whether or not wellbeing initiatives are financially beneficial to a business. I think E&Y and Deloitte came out and said recently that for every $1 spent on a wellbeing initiative, there's a $4 return. Which is great, so the CFOs of the world should be fantastic, but it's not really tangible right now, so it's a great one. But actually, we should be strengthening that with saying we can use our well-being offering as a recruitment tool. In a busy market, we're based in the UAE. It's an incredibly transient market. At the moment, it's a booming market, but it is a candidate-driven market, which means candidates have the choice. They can choose to go from one employer to the other. It's no longer about there's only one job and there's 100 people applying for it. And in that sort of scenario, how are you as an organization standing out? Because the new generation of talent that are coming through and looking to transition are no longer just looking at the brand name. They're no longer looking at who's going to pay the most. Salary will always be important, but it no longer forms the biggest part of an individual's focus when applying for a job. And so if you can put together a comprehensive, holistic, 360-degree well-being offering, whatever that looks like within the realms of your business, it becomes a selling tool and it becomes an attraction tool into the market to separate yourself from your competitors. Now, linking back to the question you just asked me, what does that look like? Now, a lot of businesses are already doing great things when it comes to well-being, but perhaps they don't categorize it in the right way. You know, a lot of businesses now across the UAE are moving to 4.5-day working weeks. Some of them are now thinking about moving to 4-day weeks. Now, that is a huge selling point but that forms part of an employee well-being offering. EAPs, employee assistance programs.
Okay,
they are so, in my personal opinion, they are so fundamental as a foundation for a business to have from an employee well-being perspective. They should be non-negotiable. They should be the bare minimum that companies are offering. And there are so many of them around the region and around the world that do this. But when I try and build a well-being strategy and try and build a well-being offering, you have to build it off a foundation of something. And that's where that EAP comes from, because the good ones offer you coverage across all those different pillars I was talking about. And when you have that offering, as a recruiter, we often said that, we're the first line of marketing for a business, other than what you see online, because we're the first people that call you to ask if you're interested in a job. So we're the face of the organization the first time you have it. And if, as recruiters, we're equipped with the knowledge that we have this, it's no longer about, look, we can offer you a 20% increase in salary. It's about saying, do you know what? Have a look at our incredible office. You can work from home, you can work remotely, you can have a 4-day week. We want to sponsor your family. We do educational allowances. You get a gym membership. We have this EAP. All of these things suddenly become a lot more attractive. And some of them businesses are already doing. They just don't advertise it properly.
Right. Okay. And do you think it's all because since the pandemic, all of this is coming into fruition now? Or is it something it's always been?
I think fundamentally it's always been there. It's always been a case of we should look after our employees and we should be aware of what we need as individuals. I just think that post-pandemic it has heightened it massively. The concept of the Great Resignation. After the pandemic, people reassess what they really want. Do they really want to be working from 9 to 5 days a week at a desk in an office doing the same thing? And a lot of people turn around and went, no, not really. They want to go and do things. You've seen big CEOs. I think it was I'm probably going to quote this wrong, but the Cigna survey that came out recently, they said, 60% of C-suite left their roles in the last 2 years because they just wanted to, you see what I mean? And so when you have that and you think, well, if we're losing that talent, and that's not just turnover, that's your top talent that's leaving. And so if you're a business that don't have an offering from a well-being perspective that can support those individuals, then you're losing your best talent. You're going to have to refill them. The cost to rehire and replace somebody in this market is huge, from a time perspective, from a productivity perspective, you name it. And if people are moving for 500 dirhams, or do you know what I mean, a better work-life blend, or a better location to work, or any of these things, why can't you as a company put together an offering to retain those people? Because talent attraction is one thing, but talent retention is another.
Yeah. And even like when I've been into companies and I've given workshops about well-being and things, it's just so needed, isn't it? People, they jump at the chance to be able to share, how they're really feeling, and having these authentic conversations, or just having that space to just share their problems. And it can really, I can see how, well, it's just so needed, and how much it can help productivity and everything.
I mean, the studies are out there. It's no longer a question. Like I said, it's no longer a question mark about whether or not well-being affects a company performance. It's a given. Like, there is zero question marks around it anymore. And it's not just the people like us that are, sort of into it and, on the well-being space. We're talking about Deloitte, E&Y, PwC. PwC, for example, have a chief wellness officer that works here in the Middle East. One of the big four has an individual that is titled as the chief wellness officer. I mean, that's phenomenal. You know, Cleveland Clinic down in Abu Dhabi has a guy that works down there as their chief wellbeing officer. You know, that trend is now moving. And so if you think about when you're looking for roles and when you're recruiting for people, how incredible would it be to be able to point to an individual and say, look, we actually have somebody that works for our business. They're solely focused on this because we want to set ourselves apart and we want to be a place that people want to come to work.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think, like you said before as well, it's how it's marketed and how it's, how it's marketed, because some people might not even understand as well, like what's being offered and what do I do with the wellness officer. You know, I think there's a lot of, like you said, about the lack of education as well. You know, if we, like, it's our responsibility, or do you think that it's the employee's responsibility to seek the help that there is, and to be like, how responsible do you think employers are for their own well-being? Because I think it's great that there's, of course, if there are trainers and workshops happening to raise awareness, but at the end of the day, we do have that responsibility ourselves, don't we? Like, what do you think about that?
1,000,000%. Well-being is 100% a self-driven focus point. Like, we could put on anything for anybody at every level, any time of the day. But if you, as an individual, don't want to seek it out, then that's on you. I think the onus on the employer specifically is you need to be able to give at least a base level support across those elements of well-being, from an education piece, as well as support with mental health, physical health, financial, intellectual, across that. And that's why I say you build that foundation and then you put into place and identify what's going on in your organization already to say, no, we do support with these things. Then it's up to the individuals to access it. But if they don't know it's happening, then how can they access it?
Yeah.
You know, and that's the thing. I think it's not just, you know, we talked to, there's some fantastic people in the market that are talking about it, and they talk about becoming a chief repetition officer, you know, because it's no longer about sending an email. You know, I work in healthcare, and so 85 to 90% of our staff are not desk-based. They're sitting in, you know, they're facing patients. So when are they going to sit and read an email about reducing stress, or the fact that there's a seminar coming up?
Yeah, of course.
I'm just using that as an example, but there are hundreds of different industries that do that, factory floor stuff. Amazon, for example. I was chatting to somebody at Amazon, and I was like, how do you communicate these ideas? And the HR people that I was speaking to said, I went out and I bought the A5 placards, plastic placards from IKEA, and I printed out a nice little A5 piece of paper, and it had a QR code on it. And it said, have you heard about our new wellbeing offering? And it had a QR code on it, and that's all it did. And when he obviously scanned it, there was great content in the background. It was hosted somewhere, and he put it on every single table in every single break room and cafe in my office. So immediately you had people going in, scanning, etc. like that, and so acting at different times. I was speaking to colleagues in Switzerland, and they said the best place to put information was on the back of toilet doors.
Oh, well, it totally makes sense. Yeah,
absolutely bizarre. But you know, when you talk about something as important as this, and getting people to understand it and see it and know that it's part of what's going on, it needs to be in people's psyche. You know, and that's why when you also, I'm not talking about you plaster it on the website and you say this is fantastic, but if you have a recruitment team or a talent acquisition team, they should have a page of what is currently offered as well-being specific options in that company. Now, whatever that is, that doesn't have to be the full range of things, but go in and actually say, well, what do we offer? Because you want to have that to hand for them to be going, well, you know, look, we may be able to move, you may be offering the same salary to move across it, but you know what else we offer? These things are fantastic. You know, and that's where recruitment and talent acquisition can use that employee well-being as weapons when they go out and try and attract talent.
Yeah, no, it's simple really when you think about it. Hi, Dana. And Dana says, it's super interesting that you say that some companies do have wellbeing offerings, but they don't advertise it properly. How can companies better advertise, i.e. attract talent to their wellbeing offerings? Thank you so much, Dana.
Yeah, thanks, Dana. I think I answered that one a little bit just then, but
you did actually.
LinkedIn, for example. LinkedIn. Well, I mean, that's internally. You know, I think what Dana's referring to is externally. Now, LinkedIn, for example, a lot of companies have LinkedIn pages, LinkedIn corporate pages, and on it they have a I I can't remember what it's called. It's a lifestyle page, I think is what it's called, under your company. And on that, you can list, what the company does. You can have recommendations or references or, testimonials or things like that. But businesses can put information there and say, this is what we offer. You can have a page on your why couldn't you have a page on your website that says, this is what we offer as well-being offer? It doesn't have to be everything. It doesn't have to go into granular detail that says at 7 p.m. on a Wednesday you can do yoga. But, highlighting those things somewhere is even better. And like I said, if you equip the recruitment of your talent acquisition teams with information about what that looks like, they're your biggest resource when it comes to spreading that message. Because, prime example, I could speak to 20 to 30 people a day about roles within an organization, and I was one of being in a team. And you extrapolate that out, and if I'm spreading a message that we're an organization that actually prioritizes well-being, and look, these are all the things that we do as well. I mean, that message, when you talk about, you tell one person, then one person tells two, and so on and so forth, and that information will spread pretty quickly.
Yeah, exactly. No, thank you so much, Dana. No, it's thank you so much for sharing that. And so what about like you in the future? Where do you see yourself in the future regards to this well-being initiatives and everything?
I think, like I said, there is there's a space at the moment where it comes to, you have people on the well-being side that are offering incredible things, and then you have businesses on the other side, and there's still a disconnect in terms of the ROI, the selling point. Because you've got the well-being offering saying, look, we can reduce your healthcare costs, we can increase productivity, so on and so forth. And they go, okay, yeah, fair enough, but how are we going to see that on the bottom line, day one, that kind of thing? Whereas I think that there is a way to be within a business that actually oversees both sides, from a real talent piece, not just talent attraction, but like I said, talent attraction and talent retention. Because employee well-being is so important nowadays. Employee engagement, Gallup's been around for years, but how effectively do businesses really take that feedback and focus on their employee engagement? There are some businesses that do it fantastically, and then there are others that just don't at all. We talk about creating a culture of psychological safety within an organization. Yeah. That starts at the top. One thing that I really want to do is I would love every leader of people anywhere to take a course in empathetic leadership. Because if they take a course in empathetic leadership, they understand the concept of psychological safety and creating that culture. And then that feeds all the way down the line to their employees. And if we, as an employer, you're offering holistic well-being and something for people to access, people are more likely to avail it because they're in an environment that encourages it and supports it. So where do I see myself? Somewhere in that mix. I don't know where it'll be yet, but being able to make people's lives a little bit better.
Yeah, well, that sounds a very good.
Wouldn't we all like to do that? I suppose.
Exactly, but I love what you said about the empathetic course you mentioned, because I think it all does again start from working on ourselves, and the more self-aware we are, the more we can, especially leaders, the more we can lead, the better we can lead others, depending on how much work we've done on ourselves anyway. So I think, like you said, it always starts from us as well.
I think what's also interesting to think about is, and I know you obviously have a big global reach, what well-being looks like is different to everybody and different around the world, and so what I'm talking about now is stuff that I've learned and I've seen based on the geography that I'm in the UAE and the Middle East specifically, because there's nuances that happen here that perhaps don't happen in the UK or the US or Asia or the subcontinent. And when you're thinking about those things, it's not about one person's idea of what well-being is. It's about what's best for the demographic of people that you have. When you talk about empathetic data gathering, one of the best things to do is to go out and do focus groups and say, what do you want? It's all well and good me saying, well, I think we should have this and I think we should do this. But if that isn't relevant to the people that need it most, then it's good for me, but it's not good for the rest of the 99% of the organization.
Yeah, no, exactly. And burnout just seems to be completely on the rise, doesn't it? But burnout, I mean, what are your thoughts about burnout? And you mentioned about the 4.5 day working week possibly going down to 4 days. Do you think that does help with reducing burnout? Because if you're highly stressed for those 4 days, trying to fit everything in, and I don't know.
Well, I mean, burnout is unquestionably one of the biggest issues that all businesses face and all employees do. And I think the way that I want to link it into this is if you think about the analogy of the cake that I gave. In order for us to solve burnout, we have to provide well-being opportunities for people, whatever that looks like. Now, if you think that an individual is already running at 100% and they are suffering from burnout, by adding on a webinar that they need to attend about stress management in their lunch hour, is that going to add to their stress levels or reduce it? Or are we going to offer cakes? Well, you see what I mean? Offering things and above, the right thing to do. But what businesses need to do is they need to look at an individual and a role specifically. And this is what, here in the Middle East, some businesses are forward, some people are slightly behind. In the rest of the world, what people are doing now, they're looking at roles and they're saying, what can we consolidate? What can we streamline? What can we make easier for an individual? Are we duplicating tasks? Is Jasmine doing something that Sam's also doing? Or is Jasmine doing something that Sam's checking it? And it's not about removing people and it's not about taking away responsibility, but it's about saying, if we can reduce workload from a role by 10%, then that 10% frees an individual up to look at well-being offerings, for them to then go and avail those offerings to then feel better about themselves, to improve their mental, the mental side of things that they're struggling with when it comes to burnout. Now, it's not going to work for everybody. Some people are fine to work through, but if you don't give people the option and you just pile things on top, then it comes down to the well-wishing thing again. It's, well, we do everything. We address burnout. We do webinars about stress. We send out emails. And I mean, how many emails do you get in your inbox every day? Realistically, as an organization, you get hundreds. And if you have one that's just lost in the noise, then, what's the point? What benefit is that really having?
No, exactly. So interesting, Sam. So interesting and so important, isn't it? I mean,
very much so.
It's a life changer, I think.
Yeah, you think about it, employees are the lifeblood of any organization. It doesn't matter who you are, what you do. If you don't have the right people working for the organization will not succeed, will not grow, will not do anything you want. And so if as an employer, you're not providing your employees with that to attract new ones, to keep the ones you have, to develop the ones you have internally, at the end of the day, it's the business that's going to suffer. Because the employee will get to the stage where they'll go, do you know what? I can move somewhere else and I can work for 3 days a week. And people are doing that now. And you're going to see that shift of people moving.
And do you think it makes a difference if the well-being education comes from in-house or external? Like, do you think, or it doesn't?
I think it needs to be both. I think first and foremost, a business needs to educate their staff about what well-being really is, whatever that looks like to that organization. They have to define what that looks like. And if they can't, there are so many resources out there from an external perspective that can help. And, when I talk about recruitment, I used to work in recruitment agency before I went in-house. And when I moved in-house, I thought, I'm never going to use agencies anymore. They're the enemy. I'm in-house now. But actually what I learned to realize pretty quickly is my job is to find the right person for the right job. Doesn't matter where it comes from. And so from a well-being perspective, we as an employer, you should be saying, we want to offer the best thing possible. It doesn't matter where it comes from.
Yeah, great answer, Sam. So is there anything else you want to say before we go? And how can people find you?
Just thank you so much, Luna. I'll happily talk about this all day. It's been lovely chatting to you. You can find me on LinkedIn, Sam Browning, on Instagram as well, Sam Browning DXB, all the usual sources.
No, thank you so much, Sam. I mean, I've learned a lot today, and I think, we could have this conversation for hours and hours. There's just so much, and your knowledge, you can see that you know your stuff. So thank you so much for coming on and sharing. And thank you everybody for joining us. If you have any questions, you can message Sam directly or myself, or leave a comment in the post. And yes, thank you so much, Sam. Really, really enjoyed today, and I will see everybody next week.
Thanks so much, Jasmine.